Hello, my name is Nairi, this is Fly Little Birds, and this is a channel all for foster carers and adopters. And in the beginning, when we first had our boys, we were foster carers and then we went on to adopt them. So I feel like I could talk about both sides, but today it's going to be about fostering. And I just want to give new foster carers, so if you're thinking of fostering, you're a new foster carer, you're within the first 6 months, for example, I just want to give you a few hints and tips to help you along the way. So the first thing to say, one of the mistakes I feel that foster carers make when they're new is when they're offered a placement, they automatically want to say yes, because you're so excited to go through the process and then the first phone call comes and you're offered a child. And believe me, you will be offered children that are not even within the remit of what you are supposed to be having. That happened to us, and we actually made the mistake of taking on a teenage girl when we actually had a teenage boy in the house, our own birth son in the house, and they were the same age. That should never even have been offered, but we actually accepted. And teenagers weren't at the time our thing, you know, we were dealing with early years and things like that. So it's not to say we couldn't have done it, but right then, when both that foster child and our birth son were exactly the same age, that was a recipe for disaster, and actually it did not work out very well. So be brave enough to think about your family situation, be brave enough to say no, because there will be more children that will come your way. Don't worry, there will be more children that will come your way. There's always the need, so try to think about really what you feel is right for you as a family. Second thing you kind of do as a foster carer is when you have your first child, you really attach to them. Now that is good, that is right. You should always attach to the children that you have. You should always let your heart be broken, invest in them, love them. But you also need to know that there'll come a day, more than likely, that you will have to let go. So it's fine to attach, but accept there'll come a day when you have to let go. And I think for your first child, your first placement, that is very, very difficult to get your head around, that you are a temporary arrangement, because you don't feel like you are. When you're investing a lot of yourself, you're giving a lot of yourself. It could be that that foster child has come with nothing, that you haven't got particularly great contact with the family perhaps, that you are everything to that child, and in that time you are. So see it more that you're laying the foundation for the next stage of their life. You're giving them the little seeds to grow rather than trying to hold on to them, because there will come a time, more than likely, unless you're going to be a long-term foster care when they move on, and if you're not prepared to accept that, you will cause yourself a lot more hurt and difficulty than it's already going to be. The next thing that I want to say is, when you're in meetings, you may find it difficult that you feel that you know the child really, really well, but actually professionals might talk over you. They may feel that they want to make different decisions from you. They may sometimes not even ask you, or even ask you to the meetings. Now, this is where I feel like that there's a big difference between the way adopters are viewed and the way a foster carer is viewed, because a adopter has a long-term investment with a child, and they are kind of treated, shall we say, with a little bit more respect sometimes. Not always, but most of the time they are. And I'm not saying this is going to be every foster carer's experience, but in some meetings I was in, I felt like, well, I might as well not have been there, because we were giving our opinion as a couple, and we did that quite regularly with the boys, give our opinion, and it would be written down, but it wouldn't necessarily be taken on board. The reason for this is you're not the active parent. You are parenting, you are caring, you are loving, you are attaching, but you're not legally the parent. So when it really comes down to it, any blame, any legalities, anything that might go wrong is actually going to be down to the social worker and the team that are supporting that social worker. So sometimes you may feel that you're right, and you may be right, but they may have to make a different decision. It might be for ease of getting the child sorted. It might be because there's not the finance. So you may be quite a long way away from the school where they're at. So say it's manageable, but it's difficult. And you may want to move that child to a school nearer to you, and that seems a really sensible, good idea for the child. But the team may know that the child will be moving on to something else quite quickly, or within a time frame that they feel it's too unsettling to move the child to one school and then move the child on to adoption. And so your decision or your thoughts on it might be overruled. And that's really hard when on a daily basis you may be going an extra 15-20 minutes or however far to a school is hard to take. Be prepared sometimes to not really be listened to. It's not necessarily that you're not being valued, but it is because, as I say, you don't have the legal responsibility for the child. They do, and sometimes they're going to think that their decision is actually going to work better than yours. Moving on to tip number 4, on the back of that though, sometimes it is worth arguing. Sometimes it is worth being firm. Sometimes it is worth writing more in your reports and bringing evidence along to back up an idea that you have, a thought that you have. I'll give you another example because that's the only way I can do it to show you what I mean in a way. Is we had a child that we felt needed specialist education. The school were making that child out to be more intelligent, or were assessing the child at a higher level than what that child was, and it was so obvious that the child really did need specialist education. And so I put myself out to fight for that, and in the end we managed to get that for the child, and the child thrived and did well in that situation. So I'm glad that I did, but it was a fight because perhaps the social workers and the people around dealing with the child didn't know as much as I did on a daily basis about how difficult that child was finding things to assimilate information and just get through the day. And so I felt like I needed to fight that child's corner a little bit more, because I didn't think people understood kind of just what we were dealing with. So that's a situation when I did hold out. But what I'm saying to you is kind of you'll need to pick your battles. If you can build up a really good relationship, particularly with your supervising social worker, then please do. I've come across a lot of foster carers who use them to moan at all the time, and of course you need to be able to get out your frustrations, because fostering is such a difficult job. It's such a taxing, difficult job. You need to be able to do that, but at the same time, your supervising social worker cannot change the world, cannot change the system in which they are based, in which they work in. And so if you can build up a positive relationship, then you will, I feel, get the better support, and you will get someone who is looking out for you more, because actually you're not just making it difficult all the time. If you found that you really just clashed with them, then it would be a really good idea to ask for a change of social worker, because you can't really have a good working relationship with someone that you're just clashing with all the time. So that would be my final tip for you. That's just a few little tips for you if you're going into fostering or you're already new at fostering. This channel is all about adoption, fostering, childhood trauma, family life. So if that interests you, please subscribe, and I'll see you on Fly Little Birds. Thank you.